There's a moment I'll never forget. I was sitting with the daughter of a man who had just suffered his second stroke. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and asked, "Is there anything we could have done differently?" I get that question more than you'd think. And while no doctor can promise prevention, I always tell my patients, what you eat matters more than you think. Food isn't just fuel, it's chemistry. Every bite you take sends signals to your body, influencing your blood pressure, cholesterol, inflammation levels, and blood sugar. And those signals can either protect your brain or set the stage for a future stroke. I've treated patients who made dramatic lifestyle changes after a stroke, and I've seen what's possible when nutrition becomes part of the healing plan. I've also seen the other side when habits go unchanged, and the damage repeats itself. In this episode, I want to give you something concrete: 5 foods backed by science that support brain and vascular health. They're not exotic. They don't require a special diet plan. They're practical, accessible, and they could change the trajectory of your life or the life of someone you love. Because stroke prevention doesn't start in the ER. It starts in the kitchen. When we think about stroke, we often picture blocked arteries or high blood pressure. But behind many of those problems is something we do every single day, 3 times a day in fact. We eat. Nutrition plays a profound role in stroke risk. In fact, studies suggest that up to 80% of strokes may be preventable through lifestyle choices, and diet is at the top of that list. That's not just wishful thinking. That's decades of epidemiological and clinical research. The foods we choose influence key stroke risk factors. Blood pressure. High sodium diets contribute to hypertension, the #1 risk factor for stroke. Cholesterol. Certain fats raise LDL, bad cholesterol, and increase plaque in arteries. Blood sugar. Refined carbohydrates and sugary foods spike glucose, leading to insulin resistance and vascular damage. Inflammation. Some foods increase systemic inflammation, making blood vessels more vulnerable. But here's the good news. The opposite is also true. Certain foods naturally reduce these risks. They help regulate blood pressure, lower bad cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and protect the delicate lining of blood vessels known as the endothelium. In neurology, we talk about vascular integrity, the ability of your blood vessels to stay strong, flexible, and open. That integrity doesn't just come from medication. It comes from micronutrients, antioxidants, and fiber. And these come from food. I always tell my patients, your plate is either your prescription or your poison, and what you eat repeatedly is what shapes your future risk. In the next section, I'll walk you through 5 specific foods that I've personally recommended to hundreds of stroke patients. They're not miracle cures, but they are powerful allies. Let's dive into the list. A few years ago, I worked with a man named Joseph. He was in his late 50s, recently retired, and had just survived a mild stroke. In the hospital, his first words to me were, "Doc, I eat what I want. Always have." He smiled when he said it, but behind that smile was fear. His cholesterol was high, his blood pressure erratic, his diet a steady stream of processed meats, fried foods, and sugary drinks. He didn't think it mattered until it did. After the stroke, Joseph was lucky to have no major physical impairments, but the event scared him enough to start asking real questions. What should I be eating now? He asked me during one of our follow-ups. What can I change that actually helps? So I sat down with him and listed out 5 foods. Not pills, not supplements, just real, whole foods that could help his arteries, his pressure, his brain. We kept it simple. We made a plan. He promised to try. And he did. Week by week, Joseph made the switch. He cut down the salt, increased the greens, swapped red meat for fish twice a week. He added berries to his breakfast, olive oil to his salad, Nothing extreme, but everything intentional. 6 months later, his numbers improved. His energy was better. And during our last appointment, he said, "I thought I had to give up everything I loved. Turns out, I just had to love myself enough to try." That moment stayed with me. Because when it comes to stroke prevention, food isn't just science. It's personal. It's about reclaiming control, one choice at a time. Now, let me walk you through those 5 foods I recommended to Joseph and why they may just belong on your plate too. Let's dive into the 5 foods I recommend again and again. Because they work. These are not fads. They're backed by clinical research and grounded in real-world results. 1. Leafy greens. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard. Leafy greens are packed with folate, vitamin K, magnesium, and nitrous, all of which help lower blood pressure and improve blood vessel function. They're also anti-inflammatory and high in fiber, which helps regulate cholesterol and blood sugar. In a large cohort study, people who consumed more leafy greens had significantly lower risk of stroke. I often suggest adding them to breakfast smoothies, sautéing with garlic, or layering in wraps instead of iceberg lettuce. If it's green and leafy, it's probably good for your brain. 2. Berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. Berries are small but mighty. They contain flavonoid-potent antioxidants that fight oxidative stress and reduce inflammation. These compounds help preserve blood vessel integrity and may reduce the risk of clot formation. A Harvard study showed that women who ate more berries had a lower risk of stroke. I tell patients, if you can swap your sugary dessert or morning pastry for a bowl of berries, your brain will thank you. SAN. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel. These fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which have been shown to reduce triglycerides, lower blood pressure, and decrease plaque buildup in arteries. Omega-3s also support brain cell membranes and reduce inflammation. I recommend at least 2 servings per week. Grilled, baked, or broiled, avoid frying. For those who can't eat fish, high-quality omega-3 supplements are an option, but food is always better when possible. 4. Nuts and seeds. Walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds. These are nutrient-dense and full of healthy fats, fiber, magnesium, and antioxidants. Walnuts in particular contain plant-based omega-3s, while flax and chia also contribute lignans compounds that help improve heart and brain health. A small handful of unsalted nuts daily can go a long way. Sprinkle seeds on oatmeal or yogurt. Just remember, portion control matters, as these are calorie-rich. 5. Extra virgin olive oil, a cornerstone of the Mediterranean diet. Extra virgin olive oil is high in monounsaturated fats and polyphenols. It's been shown to improve endothelial function and reduce inflammation. Replace butter or processed oils with olive oil for cooking, dressings, or drizzling over vegetables. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is enough to get its benefits. These 5 foods aren't magic, but they're powerful. They protect the vessels that feed your brain. They regulate the systems that manage pressure and flow. And perhaps most importantly, they're sustainable. You can eat this way for life. In the next section, I'll tell you about the pitfalls I see when people try to change their diets and how to build habits that actually last. Changing how you eat isn't just about information, it's about behavior. And behavior is rooted in habits, emotion, and environment. That's why even after a stroke, when motivation is high, I still see many patients struggle to stay on track. One of the biggest mistakes? Trying to change everything overnight. I've seen people throw out their pantry, stock up on superfoods, and go full throttle for 1 week only to burn out and return to old habits. Sustainable change is gradual. It's about consistency, not perfection. Pick 1 or 2 habits to focus on first and build from there. Another mistake is overcomplicating nutrition. People get overwhelmed by rules, macros, and conflicting online advice. In reality, good stroke prevention nutrition is simple. Eat more whole foods, eat fewer processed ones. If your food comes in a box with ingredients you can't pronounce, think twice. I also see patients fall into the trap of thinking healthy eating is all or nothing. One indulgent meal doesn't ruin your progress, just like one salad doesn't fix everything. What matters is the pattern over time. If you slip, forgive yourself. Then recommit. Finally, a mistake I wish more people understood: ignoring the emotional side of eating. Food is comfort, culture, routine. When you ask someone to change what they eat, you're asking them to change part of their identity. That's why support matters. Talk to a nutritionist. Involve your family, or find a community that shares your goals. The patients who succeed long-term aren't the ones who follow a perfect meal plan. They're the ones who keep going, one mindful choice at a time. Next, I want to share how that steady effort pays off and what I've seen when food becomes part of the healing process. I've seen recovery look very different depending on whether someone embraces nutrition as part of their healing or ignores it. Take Joseph, for example. 6 months after his stroke, his numbers improved. Yes, but something deeper had changed. He felt more energy. His digestion improved. His mood lifted. And most importantly, he felt in control again. He once told me, "I used to think recovery was just physical therapy. I didn't realize it was also about what's on my plate." That insight made all the difference. Food became part of his routine and not a diet, not a punishment, but a new form of self-respect. And it gave him a sense of agency at a time when many stroke survivors feel powerless. On the flip side, I've had patients who made no nutritional changes and suffered another stroke within a year. Sometimes they told me they didn't think food could really make a difference. Sometimes they just didn't have the support. But every time, it broke my heart, because it wasn't about blame. It was about missed opportunity. Recovery after a stroke isn't just about regaining what was lost. It's also about protecting what's left. The brain is resilient, but it needs your help. And the food you choose, meal after meal, can be one of your strongest allies. In the next section, I'll leave you with a simple call to action. Because knowing is good, but doing is what changes your future. If you've listened this far, you already understand something essential. Food isn't just about calories, it's about power. Power to protect your brain. Power to rewrite your story. Power to say, "I'm taking control of what happens next." I've seen people change their lives one meal at a time. I've seen energy return, blood pressure drop, spirits lift. And I've seen families rally around a loved one and build a new routine together, one grocery list, one recipe, one bite at a time. So what can you do today? Start small. Pick one of the 5 foods we talked about. Maybe it's berries or leafy greens. Add it to one meal this week, just one. Then build from there. Talk to your doctor. Ask about your numbers, your cholesterol, your pressure, your blood sugar. These are things you can influence. And food is one of the most powerful tools you have. Most importantly, invite others in. Let your family know what you're working on. Share this episode with someone you love. Recovery and prevention are not solo missions, they're shared journeys. Because stroke doesn't just affect the person who suffers it, it affects everyone around them. But the good news is so does healing. Let your next meal be a choice toward life, not fear, toward strength, not worry, toward a future where you're not just surviving but thriving. And if no one has told you yet today, you're doing better than you think. Keep going. I'll see you in the next episode.